What are you so confused about? Okay, swallow. Why is Cassie always about to do a spit take every day of my life? It's because you're always drinking. You drink too much.
We need to talk about the Kennedy siblings. Episode 5. Welcome to Blood and Business.
I'm Bethany.
And I'm Cassie.
I love the end of episode 5. It's like, who is Jack going to become? And it's like, we all know he's going to become president, but how exactly does that happen? And he hasn't met Jackie yet.
Was hard for me to come up with because it's like episode 5 and 6 are very much, I could have made just one giant long episode. So I really struggled with how to like separate them.
The two, yeah.
And then also have a dramatic ending for both of them and also have a dramatic opening for both of them. So,
but it was just too much because it was originally one episode, but it was just like too much, I feel like, to digest.
It was like 40 pages of a script.
Yeah.
So.
Although I did go back and I'm doing home videos for the Bouvier Sisters for all of season 1.
Oh my gosh.
And episode 2 of the Bouvier Sisters is like an hour and 25 minutes.
It's an hour and a half. We literally should have made the Bouviers like 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah. And we like barely covered JFK. We're just like, they got married, so next.
So I think I kind of knew. Well, first of all,
we for sure knew
that we were going to do the Kennedys. I didn't know.
We didn't for sure know. We just for sure knew that it was like a huge can of worms, and like we just weren't willing to open that up because
it was about the sisters.
It was about Lee and Jackie. It was not about JFK, and JFK wasn't going to steal the spotlight. So
and I was also just not even sure people were going to like the podcast.
Yes, because he's like, why go through all the effort?
Yeah.
And now we're going through too much effort. Today, Dad asked me, is Cassie over-researching things? And I was like, yes. But
for
also...
sure. But how can I not? I'm terrified. I'm terrified.
I was like, we get one shot per sibling group. We need to do it justice. But
I know for a fact I'm going to look back and be like,
what were we thinking? Yeah, season
Kennedys
5
did not get the freaking justice that they deserved.
But I was also... It made me think, I was like, you know what, Dad, that's actually a good point because I've been thinking like we get one shot per sibling set. But I also think that in season 4, if we have something to add, we could totally do
But we're
an
not,
added
though.
episode.
We're not going to go research the Kennedys after we already researched the Kennedys. That's the thing.
No, but if we find out things like,
but if
we know more about Jackie now and about
because I'm researching the Kennedys.
And we're going to research.
Oh, that's true. Like the Queen.
Yes.
Or
just all these random people with random connections, and we find out more about them through researching that.
Or even our minisodes. Just shout out to the minisodes. There's a lot of really interesting content in there that honestly we wish would even go in a main episode.
Yeah, especially the
Lem, Grey Gardens.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say especially, then I was like, you know what, all of it,
all of it. Gloria.
Someone else even said on Instagram, sent me a message about doing Ethel's, which Ethel is, you haven't really met her yet, but she's coming up in the next few episodes. She's Bobby's wife.
They seem like the purest, most fun people out of all of the Kennedys.
Yeah. And, well, maybe besides Eunice.
But she's not that fun. She's not like a cheery person. She is like
she's not wild.
A warrior for justice and truth.
She's
and
like the more
advocacy.
Pure.
Yeah.
But not just like the absolute
She's not pure. No, I feel like Ethel is more just like, dude, I am here for a good time, not a long time. Yeah. Like she's just purely like
simple.
Yeah, and she's like Eunice carries the pain and the horrible things of life with her. Mm-hmm. It's not so pure. It's more.
Anyways,
having to right the wrongs that are living in her freaking brain.
Cassie has a whole freaking lifetime of talking about Eunice and Rosemary. But I was talking with someone on Instagram about her because I don't even know how she heard us talk about them. Well, did we say in KFM 3.1 about something? Anyways, I don't know. But she messaged me about Ethel because I said something, or maybe I said something in stories about Ethel that I love her. And she said, I just listened to something about Ethel's like niece or something getting murdered. Whoa. And she got murdered like really young. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And Ethel's parents both died in a plane crash. So like the Kennedy curse is just like a spider web. Like it's the amount of people that we could cover and the tragedies and like the
Well,
freak accidents
If you remember,
are plentiful.
Onassis's daughter, Christina, thought that that Jackie had infected her family with the Kennedy curse. She brought it with her to the Onassis family. So
wild. And the
are
others
just wild. And you know what?
And it's not even just. Yeah, it's not even just. I just embellished.
I feel like that was the tone.
And I bet the others are wild. It's so good. Anyways, so episode 5, we still have a lot to talk about. And also I feel like it was the uphill climb to the climax.
Exactly.
And it's like we're about to go even crashing down, and then we're going to climb again.
We're about to get at like a big dramatic part of the story, and episode 5 wasn't a lot of just pure
drama.
Entertainment. It was like information that we need. It was like you're doing the work to climb up the roller coaster, so then you can go down and like
take the dramatic swing.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were bored by episode 5, do not be discouraged.
The drama is yet to come. But I do think that it adds to the dynamic between Joe Jr. and Jack. Basically, the whole family dynamic and like what was going on, it not only in the story, but like in real life, teed them up to disperse. Like their family kind of like broke a little bit with Rosemary, with what's
the
about
war.
with what's about to happen.
Yeah.
This is like the outs with Kick. You're about to find out a lot. And like the family was super together and united. And
it's like, and then the gallivanting came to an abrupt halt, and even within the Kennedys.
Yeah, they like broke. Their family was never the same after this. And I feel like the roller coaster ride up was like fairly smooth sailing for them. Like obviously a lot of crap has happened already, but
that time period of life was very hopeful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Compared to what is about to happen, it was smooth sailing. So yeah, Rosemary's about to go down with all 4 of the oldest.
Yeah, I struggle with this episode, and it's the one that I'm the most nervous about because I don't know if I have I'm really, really, really trying to give enough like reverence and acknowledgement to how severe the topics and how sad and horrible what we're talking about is. And I was performing my script. And so...
And like trying to be entertaining.
Yeah. And trying to like do a podcast. And I still don't know how to do it well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Basically, Cassie and I are trying to figure out a way to not sugarcoat this situation at all, not over advocate for the Kennedy family at all, but also not villainize them in a way that was not their actual perspective and make it seem way worse. Because their point of view way worse than it actually was.
I was almost going to say like, because there's a lack of grace in our society today and but I don't even think we're trying to correct anything. We're just trying to do the story and the people justice. That's it.
Of what actually happened. Not what we believe should have happened. Not what we wish would have happened. Not villainizing the past or romanticizing the past. We're just trying to actually put together what went down and how people were actually thinking.
And the one that has the most black and white evidence against them is Joe Jr. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, he was just a kid. He was just a kid. But I still don't think that excuses some of the perspectives that he had.
And they also just like don't make sense. So I feel like we have a lot of missing pieces. My dad even pointed out with all the things happening with Joe Jr. and his way of thinking, like, how does that even make sense? Because we say in the podcast, Joe Jr. is had very left socialist beliefs.
And that was a discussion between Rose and Joe Sr. very explicitly. And there's that whole thing of,
do we let him?
Yeah, Rose was like, I don't think it's a good idea to let him go study under a socialist guy. What if he has socialist ideas and we don't agree with that? And Joe Sr.'s like, it doesn't freaking matter. I want him to have his own ideas, whatever they are, even if I don't agree.
Right.
So that was like, for sure that guy was socialist, like a very left person. And we see evidence that Joe Jr. did get a lot of his ideas from him.
Right. We're talking about Harold Lasky.
Agreed with Harold Lasky on a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And then
there's also at the exact same time period, he's writing his dad, Joe Sr., letters about Hitler and how Hitler's ideas are interesting and I don't know, the things that he said are just
and
so...
they could be great for society.
Yeah.
And
like, what are you even saying?
People who are criticizing him are being way too harsh. I want to see how this plays out. I think might be something great here. It could either be, and he said it could either be the worst thing ever or the best thing ever.
Yeah, and we could get rid of the horrible specimen of men that exist on this planet. So he was definitely talking about like freaking murdering people and like getting rid of people, which is...
He was talking not about murdering people. He was talking about sterilization. That was the whole...
okay. See, I was already... Because I already have... I already know what happened with the Holocaust and
you're
genocide.
You're putting the genocide into his mind.
Yes, and he wasn't thinking that for sure. See, it's I'm
even
trying.
Being conscious of it, it's still...
Yes, I'm trying to not meld the two, and I still am. And not that genocide hadn't happened before World War II, but it definitely wasn't on people's brain like that.
We're just saying that he didn't know when he was talking about Hitler that that's what Hitler was currently doing.
Wow. Okay. So I'm just now understanding that he was, yes, in that same letter talking about sterilization, the sterilization laws.
That was Hitler getting rid of the disgusting specimens that inhabit this earth.
Right.
He was talking about sterilization, and he
which
probably
is still
would have
a
agreed.
Sick way of disgusting, sick, not godly way of thinking.
That's the whole point. Yeah. It's evil,
but
pure evil. He
like
was not talking about murdering someone who was already alive.
Yes, okay.
He was talking about preventing defective, quote unquote, people from being born, which is inherently evil because those people are not defective. Obviously, I'm just making sure that people know what I'm saying.
And I
think that he probably had such a eugenic way of thinking
because of the time period.
Because of the time period that he probably would have sterilized Rosemary. He would have sterilized his sister.
Right.
And he wouldn't have thought that that was evil or morally wrong. People tell people to abort their babies who have, when they can tell that your baby is going to have some sort of disorder or handicap or something. Doctors tell people now to abort. I know people personally that have been told to abort their baby current day. And then we're judging people
because
back then for having this a similar idea.
It makes me so nauseous to think about. And me being I don't even think this is an Enneagram 1 thing because I should hate Joe Jr. as a 1 and like want.
Yeah.
I see him as evil, and I am sitting here being like,
you have a lot of grace for a 1.
Oh, I wish he got to live a
longer
life and redeem himself.
That,
yeah.
Yes.
And
don't say that.
Why?
We shouldn't be talking about this.
Why?
Because next episode.
Oh my gosh. I'm like not getting my timelines. Like,
I know, it's so hard. Okay. Literally, me and Bethany ask ourselves almost every day, what have we done and what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Why did we do this to ourselves?
Why did we open this can of worms, first of all?
Well, first of all, because we didn't freaking know the can of worms that the Kennedys are.
Oh my God, we were already freaking knee deep before
and we were
realized.
Like, whoa.
And then it just kept coming.
Oh, it's like every episode is like this huge moral, super sensitive, nuanced, complicated,
which also brings
issue.
Up, it has just, I'm going to sound like an old person, rocked my world. Every single episode or every event that we discover within the Kennedy story that is worth discovering, because obviously a lot of mundane things happened in their life, but also not really.
I know. Bethany's like, okay, so Lemon, Jack bought a dog together in Germany, and it was like this whole fiasco. It was like, dun, 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 like that's the vibe of the story. And Bethany's like, oh my gosh, I have all these photos. Why didn't we tell it? We told it in the Lem Billings minisode on our Patreon, but it's not in the main story. And I'm like, because it's a story about a
dog,
friends buying a dog.
But it's like, just so funny,
but it doesn't have anything to do with the siblings. And then she's like, oh my gosh, we need to freaking talk more about Joe Kennedy and how freaking nuanced and horrible his ideas and thoughts were. And I'm like, this is a podcast about the siblings. We have to stay focused. And we have talked a lot about him, but I wanted to talk about his parenting because it's a sibling podcast and that's context. But I don't want to talk about his political ideas or his political career.
But if you are a history nerd, dude, look more into that whole dynamic right there. That's a freaking Flight of the Bumblebee. Look at Prime Minister Chamberlain and Joe Kennedy and Winston Churchill, all three, their dynamic and what them leading up to World War II. Them as people, absolutely fascinating. Them in a like political context, absolutely fascinating. Them once they're all dead and we can look at their entire lives, like, whoa, an actual psychological.
I haven't even had time to deep dive into that.
Investigation could go on with these characters.
I just know how much of a character Churchill is and how wow of a personality Joe Kennedy was. And I'm a little bit, I think, harsh and judgmental on Chamberlain, but I would have to actually go into his story to.
I just think
judge him.
Like, oh my gosh, with that amount of pressure and
and he was
also that amount of
to help. He was trying.
Like, I think that most of those people did have good intentions. They just were not always
opening their eyes to the full situation.
Maybe like they were too not ignorant. They were too prideful or thought that they had more control than they actually had.
Right.
And freaking, why wouldn't you in Great Britain back then think that?
Yeah.
Just so much of the historical context is so interesting.
Germany wasn't a great nation.
No. Anyways.
This is a history podcast, but it's not.
To reel it back.
It's like we're not a history podcast, and we're on the history charts.
But if you look at, I need to drink some water.
We're a history podcast by necessity, but like we're trying not to be. Mm-hmm. We're just so aware.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're just so aware that we're confused
probably
and just trying
screwing it up. This just brought up the disclaimer that we talked about that I need to say. Just so you know, I have not been at the JFK library reading every letter that Joe Sr. ever wrote. And I'm also not just Googling and clicking on the first article that I see, and that's that. Like, I am...
She's not reading People magazine and going
right.
with it.
I am not the historian. I am not the initial first-person researcher. I am reading those people's books and those people's summary. We always list our sources at the end of the episodes, and we have a full entire list on Patreon if you want to go there. It's not like a paid thing. Anyone can download our source list. That's just where it's stored. But the main type of source that I'm using is a published historical biography from a person who is at the JFK library going through every single one of Joe Sr.'s letters and Jack's letters and Lem's letters and compiling it and organizing it over years and years. Some of them are like Kennedy and Bouvier experts,
right,
or just Kennedy experts, or just JFK experts, or just presidential biographers.
Yeah.
And they've studied like 3 or 4 American presidents.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that I am gaining my information from, and I'm kind of just trusting them because I feel like that is the extent of my capacity. That is as far as
fact check.
Yeah, like I don't have the capacity to just go do it myself.
No,
or we
and
wouldn't
also
have
that
a
would be
podcast.
so boring. I have read some of those letters and have also listened to a lot of the like radio talks that JFK has done, and even Joe Sr. The way that they talk takes a minute to digest and understand what the crud are you saying.
Okay.
Because of the like older English. It's not even old English, but it's like a little bit of the older English. Also, a lot of their like telegraphs and crap are like shorthand and you're like, what the crud? You're like skipping every 4th word. And also a lot of what they talk about is like way over my head, like with policy and crap. So I'm like trying to digest that.
Well, that, and then like we don't freaking know what was going on in the world back then.
Right. And they're assuming that they're sending it to their freaking dad, or they're sending it to their best friend.
What's going on.
Yes.
And we don't freaking know
they have
what
the context.
country
We don't have the freaking context.
Was doing what. Also, next episode, we will be talking about how Joe Sr. and Jack were not great orators and not great with words.
Right.
So anyway, it's not my life purpose to study JFK, so I'm not going to go do that. But I'm trying to get the purest sources that I have capacity for. I can read a book. And so that's what I'm doing.
And that's what most of us are not going to do. We're not going to sit here and read
exactly
10 biographies over JFK from 1920 to 1960. So we want you to digest all of that.
Actually, 1917 to 1963, but that's okay.
So as Cassie and I are recording this, we are watching the episode 5 home video that I created for Patreon. This is the first time Cassie's watched it, and most of the time she's seen it like before we're recording, but she was out of town. Anyways. And we're looking at all of the footage from World War I and then
the lead up to World War II. With all of the propaganda and all of the Nazi craziness.
Yeah.
The height of the Nazi craze.
I don't think that we have a good grasp on, especially as Americans in like a very individualistic, very free society.
Yeah.
We don't understand like being brainwashed to this extent. Like we think that American policy and like American propaganda is like, oh, so crazy and we're all so blah blah blah. Like we think,
but we talk about it openly so often. We're like, that's stupid, or we feel the freedom to be unhappy with our leadership.
We have absolutely
and to say that out loud,
no idea what it is like to be born and raised in an area where like your duty, your service, your honor is all for your country and for your leader, and like they will do anything that their leader says, and it's like such a core belief for them. So watching these videos of these German soldiers and these Nazis, like I don't think we have any grasp. Like I there's nothing to even say here. It's
like we have awe for how awful and strong that force was. Awe in a bad way. It's not an awe of something so cool and amazing.
No, it's like bone chilling. But
it's
watching the
striking,
video, and
like you don't even have words to process it.
Yes, and even like trying to sit here and force myself to process it and understand and try to feel like what it must have been like.
You just know you don't know.
I have absolutely no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no idea what it would have been like to be a German, what it would have been like to be a Jew, what it would have been like to be an American during this time. Like when this is happening, I have no idea. And I think that also helps with putting it into context. Like we always talk about, there are a lot of missing pieces. And what I was kind of saying with the letters to each other, Joe Sr., Joe Jr., Jack, like just their thoughts being written down in journals and in letters, it always feels like there's like missing pieces to me of like, okay, well, I clearly didn't get that whole conversation, or I'm not understanding something. And I think a lot of it has to do with like the time that they were living in. They were speaking a lot on pop culture and like current events. And
that was actually Jack's favorite subject to talk about. In general, he was always listening to the radio, always listening to Winston Churchill, and he was always asking questions about the world at large and what was going on a global scale. Even when he was president, he was a very world-minded leader.
But it was also a time of such, not unrest, but like of change. And so many things were shifting between World War I and World War II, the stock market crashing, the Great Depression, the Roaring 20s, like all of this crap all happened within like a freaking 50-year time period. So Can you imagine the amount of shift and change and perspective and knowledge and power that people were just absolutely like coming to in a matter of what probably felt like minutes, and even like which
we talked about in our Halloween special as well. The Fox sisters, the reason I think that they got away with their prank and the way that it became it became a whole religion is because the things that people were discovering were so paradigm shifting and so worldview shifting that it was like they went from like believing nothing was possible to believing, well, frick, everything's possible. Like there's nothing we can't do as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And
I guess, I don't know if this is what I was trying to say, but I will add this onto what I was saying. So Cassie talks about in episode 5, Jack and Lem's experience studying abroad, being in Germany. And this is all obviously before World War II. But the way that they were talking about Hitler and about the Nazis and about the Germans and about the people that they were meeting, like just the everyday citizens that they were talking to, hearing from, then also the leaders and like the important, quote unquote, important people that they were speaking with. It's like these were all playing out real time, obviously. So when they are talking about the Germans and when they are talking about Hitler, it's like just this leader in this one country that's foreign. We are 18, 19 years old. We have not spent a ton of time in a
if you
fascist
don't know
country.
that Germany's going to go attack the freaking world, then who is Germany?
They were extremely ignorant about what was going on and extremely young, naive, had not traveled a ton, were not these wise old.
They had traveled, but not to where they're like actually understanding the political, like they're just now starting to do that.
Well, yeah, because they're like barely adults.
Yeah.
And,
but like
and
Jack
even,
had been.
But not a ton.
Okay, true.
Like full
it all
like
starts
Great
now.
Britain, sure.
Yeah.
But that's like, they stayed pretty much in the Western world and they had not done a lot of, I don't
they
think
had
that
gone
he had
on like
studied.
vacations.
Yes, they had not studied though, and like actually tried to get in with the culture and with the political leaders prior to this. Mm-hmm. So this is like their first experience.
Speaking of the age that they were and the fact that you said they're just now starting to travel, we had discussed that they didn't even think that a world war was going to happen. They definitely didn't see a war between Germany and France because they thought that France was like way well prepared for Germany, and it was just a more localized like
view of things.
Yeah, there's like some conflict, but like that's nothing. Like but then as their trips progress, and we didn't get into all of this in the episode because I'm not going to sit here. I said in the episode,
I'm not getting into all this,
bored, and I literally don't freaking care.
Yeah, as I'm like, sure most people do not. And I'm over here telling Cassie she needs to do all these freaking disclaimers and add all these things. And Cassie's like, I don't care. Let's get into the freaking actual juicy story.
Yeah, like I'm fine with disclaimers.
Like, why are we actually here? And that's the bottom line. Why are we actually here? We are here to learn from their family dynamic and their personal perspectives, not the global scale of things. This is a sibling podcast, not a politics and history podcast. Right.
It's history for the context of personal experience. Look at sibling relationships, not history for the sake of history. There are people who can do that way more
qualified
extensively than I can. But I do want to say there are letters where you can kind of see Jack and Lem. Bethany pointed this out to me. You can kind of see Jack and Lem as they travel around Europe and as they talk to more and more people. They're talking to political leaders. They're also talking to just like the dude in the bar and the dude walking down the street.
And the people that they literally don't speak the language but are trying to like communicate with and hang out with.
Yeah. And so as they're doing this more and more and more, they're starting to be like, oh gosh.
What is going on?
Well, a lot of these Germans seem to be very convinced of something.
And Hitler's propaganda is actually pretty freaking good and he knows what he's doing. And that's a little concerning, but also interesting that so many people in my American white boy perspective can be like this convinced by like these grown adults.
This bought in.
And
so they didn't know there was going to be a world war, but they started to realize a little bit more of the seriousness and the severity of
what was going on.
Yeah.
What was brewing. When they first went into it, it was very lighthearted. They were making fun of Hitler. They were, hi, Hitler.
Yeah, they're like, oh, these people are just arrogant. And then they were starting to be like, oh, these people are dangerous.
Yeah, like something's going on here. And I know that I don't know the full extent of it, but something's happening. And it feels weird.
Yes.
But I don't exactly know what's going on. And also, they were only there for like 3 months. So
it was more nuanced and more like you have to talk to a lot of people to realize there's like this tone.
And also, they were talking to people who were very anti-Hitler and anti-Nazi regime. And the fact that some people were so radically against it, talking to them kind of opened up their eyes as well. Like, oh, there's something to hate here.
Yeah.
When we were coming into it thinking like, oh, we're just in another country. These people are different. The society, culture, political atmosphere is different. And then it turned into something shady might be going on. But we're also We have no idea.
Yeah. First of all, they have no idea. And second, they're just like trying to learn. They're not trying to come in and change things. They're not actually there to like work and be a politician.
Yeah.
They're trying to observe.
Point. Yes. JFK is not going here as JFK, the freaking president of the United States. He doesn't need to
solve anything. He's just 17.
Yeah. He's just a kid. Literally just graduated high school.
Yes.
With his best friend, hanging out. They're having fun. They're using their dad's money to study abroad, quote unquote, study abroad.
Study for 10% of the time.
Yeah. Jack took his car and they were like driving around, crashing the car, then meeting local dudes to like help fix the car that they couldn't even speak.
Then
like,
hunting down a dog that they could buy, that they could take back to America.
Like a lot of it was chaotic and like fun. So they, like Cassie said, I hadn't even thought of that either. Like, what were they going here for the purpose of what? For the purpose of having fun.
For the purpose of having fun. Semicolon. And also because my dad says I need to go open my eyes.
Yeah, to the world at large.
Yeah.
They were not going there. Like
they're not trying to solve a problem.
They were not trying to freaking find world peace.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
Also, which I've had this epiphany before, but did you realize that Eddie Moore, do you know what freaking Teddy's name is? Eddie Moore. Word for word.
What?
It's Edward Moore Kennedy. And Eddie Moore is the Godfather.
Wow.
And
dude, everyone is named after somebody.
Every single one
really
of them.
loved their people.
Also, I cannot wait to get into Kick because she was way more famous. Like, she was the most famous Kennedy kid.
And she wasn't just a famous Kennedy kid. She was like a celebrity, like a socialite.
Like basically an heiress.
Yeah. Like, and there's a lot with her. Like she even was, she inherited like a family estate from English royalty. Like there's some weird stuff with Kick, and I haven't even fully dove into it.
No, because it's going to be a lot
integrated into English aristocrat royal bloodline and families. I don't know.
It's bizarre.
Yes.
In episode 5, the audio episode, we don't get into Kick a lot. Cassie mentions her like a little bit of what she's doing at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a top tier patron and you watched the home video, you saw newspaper clippings that foreshadow what's going to happen in the future with Kathleen, which is Kick, which apparently, we haven't got into this yet, but apparently she was like the most famous Kennedy kid.
Not even just for a Kennedy, like Kick was a socialite and a name in and of herself.
There were some articles that the headline was like Kathleen Kennedy interested in blah, 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 and like talking about her dating life. And then a side, like a footnote was, oh, also her dad is the ambassador and the whole family just moved here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But like there was a lot of coverage on Kathleen. And I wonder if that's why because I was weirded out that like Kathleen went with the younger siblings. It was like Rose and then Kathleen and then the youngest's Pat,
that
Jean,
went where?
And Bobby that moved first.
Oh.
But then it's like, why did Rosemary and Eunice went later and Jack and Joe went later? That makes sense. But like, why? I don't know. I was just like, what in the crud?
I was just thinking, well, yeah, because she dropped out of school to go.
Yes. So I'm like,
so she wasn't just like free.
No.
And now, to ensure that you stay well fed, here is your conspiracy of the week.
Kick, this is my conspiracy. We haven't like researched a ton into it yet, but Kick just like wanted to be famous and was eating it up like crazy and was, I think, probably besides Pat, like maybe the most freaking vain Kennedy.
Oh, for sure. And come on.
Just very surface level.
Yeah.
Like she was going to school for interior design or something like that, which, no offense. Artsy, but I went to fashion school for a year, so it's fine.
It's just that
just for a Kennedy, it was like all these people were doing such important things, and then she's like an interior designer in New York. Okay,
she's like Lee. She's here for a good time.
Yeah, just into it. Stay tuned for that because that is going to be a whole other can of worms.
Yes,
and we're like just getting into the Kennedy curse, so she's a fairly big part of that, and just bizarre things happen within their family that to me require a paradigm shift within who I think the Kennedy family is, like who individually they are, but also who they are as a family and what matters to them because some events are going to go down that do not make sense to me, like how that could how you could do that to a family member.
Yep. And we've been taking things as they come. So our perspective on who the Kennedys were may change as these new events kind of take place in our story. Because we haven't gone super far ahead and then like made our decisions. Like I haven't dug into Kick. I know the surface level of what happened, but I haven't done my deep dive and thought about all the perspectives and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have with Rosemary's story.
Yeah,
like
we spent months just stewing over her personal story. But it is a juicy one. We know enough to know that.
Yes, we know enough to know that. So we are actually going to have like a dedicated sister episode because as much as there is with JFK, like we could just literally go on and on and on. So he's going to have a lot of episodes, but there's also a lot of interesting things that happen in the sisters' stories and their lives. So we are going to do a deep dive into Kick as well. And if you like the monarchy, if you like watching The Crown, stuff like that, you're interested, this has a lot of overlap with that. She is very much in English aristocracy and
the like royal culture.
Yes, that elitist,
Americans don't have.
Not at all.
Just a reverence that is just not American.
No, that goes against
everything
our lifeblood. So yes, you will get a taste of that, and then eventually, I've had way too many people ask us to do Princess Margaret and the Queen Elizabeth story. So
yeah, while I was talking to Dad today, I mentioned that because I was naming off some of the siblings that
we want to do.
Well, the protein shake I drank this morning.
How it started,
reading the back of the bottle, and it started by 3 brothers, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cute. It started in their little brother's college dorm, which I just love. Anyway, so I read that, and then I was like telling my dad about it, and then talking about how Jane Fonda, like the overlap with that, with how her mom died in the same Craig house that Rosemary lived in, and her brother, and apparently there's like a huge story with her dad. Like they reconciled over after like decades of like being on polar opposite sides of everything. And
we have to write her down for a minisode.
Yeah. So anyways, there's that overlap.
Because I'm gonna forget again, and that sounds crazy.
Crazy. I told him about another. How an episode. I was doing the episode 5 home video for Patreon, and I had to look up Judy Garland because Cassie mentioned her. I was like grabbing a photo of her, and then I get in this deep dive freaking researching Judy Garland and how she started, her career started when she was a toddler, and she started out as the Gum Sisters. And I just think that that's crazy. Literally she was the youngest of 3 girls, and they had a whole career that it turned into the Garland sisters, and then it turned into just Judy Garland. But we have to do them as well because that's a fascinating, heartbreaking, terrifying story.
Her life is so heartbreaking,
but also a beautiful story. So anyways, there's just all these different sibling sets that we need to do. So I was telling my dad about the ones we want to do in the future, and then talking about
the monarchy.
Yeah, the Queen and her sister. And my mom is very into that as well. She loves British TV.
Oh my
BBC.
gosh. Yeah, I'm literally the outlier in our family. Everybody loves a British television show. Anyway, I am repulsed, and
Cassie does not want to freaking do it. Anyway, so I tell Dad we have to do that in the future because everyone's asking, and my dad was like, you literally can't. It's impossible.
I literally am gonna be like, so this freaking chick anyway. No,
but then he was like, that's when the whole spiel on like you need to get an editor ASAP started. Yeah, because Dad was like, this is not sustainable. You can't do the freaking Queen, and what are you, crazy?
Oh, he's just saying how
like a massive undertaking.
Okay, yeah, that's massive. You're right. I thought he was saying, I know Cassie. She doesn't freaking want to tell that story. She's going to do a terrible job.
No, he was just like, that's impossible. Yeah, that will take a lifetime.
Dude, I feel like the Kennedys is worse.
Maybe one season you can do her life in these years, and then the next season will be her life during these years.
Oh my gosh, I'm never going to do that. I don't want to. No. That just sounds way too much like a history podcast. I'm like, okay, I'm getting uncomfortable here.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, we didn't think the Kennedys were going to be this crazy.
No, we didn't. And with the Queen, I'm sure there's so many podcasts that hopefully we can just zoom in on that sister dynamic and just give as much context as is needed. I bet
And
you there's
no
a
more.
I bet you there's a bunch of people who are like screaming in their cars right now, like, no, tell the whole freaking story,
Yeah.
because everybody's obsessed. So
Everyone's obsessed, but I do want to just absolutely zoom in on that relationship. That relationship actually reminds me of what? Who are you going to say?
Jackie and Lee.
Just sisters are a fascinating breed. And Cassie's half asleep talking to me.
I
Do
just
we
like
just hope that we can't
relax
hear the...
so much in the KFMs because Bethany just is like,
Yeah, I drink extra coffee and Cassie just doesn't drink coffee apparently on these days. Going back to episode 3 and 4 in Rosemary's episodes, where we talk about, and basically in the KFMs, we talk about how insane it is that, and like shocking for the time period and for like what was happening socially and just people's views on the disability community. How crazy it is that they took Rosemary to see the Queen. Now I'm thinking this is just like one event. Who even cares about the Kennedys? It's all about the Queen. Like, it's not even that big of a deal. Like, no one's gonna notice.
Well,
No. If you look at the if you read the journal entries from Rose and Joe, and you look at the newspaper and like all of the media at the time, these newspaper articles were highlighting for weeks that specifically Kathleen Kennedy and Rosemary Kennedy, were going to be presented to the Queen. So they're like digging into these people, putting their faces all over the newspapers. Like, Rosemary was highlighted to an extent that none of the other Kennedys were besides Kick. So anyways, it's just like a way bigger of a deal than I was even thinking after have sat there and like really tried to think about how crazy it was for the time period.
Because we were just thinking like, oh, Joe Kennedy's daughter,
Right.
that's exposing. Like, if anyone found that out, they would expose it. No, they already would have known Rosemary's name. They would have already known Rosemary has a condition.
Yeah, like she was getting more publicity than Jack was, than Joe was. Like, they were getting some decent like family exposure, and like they were following them on family vacations and trips. And Jack did get like several obviously newspaper articles about him and his dad going back home from Great Britain to visit them.
Love a girl in a dress.
Yes, but it was all about, like, there were 10 times the amount of articles that I found about Rosemary and Kick than there were about the boys or about the younger kids at all.
But then he said it's kind of like the American debutante scene. We're trying to grasp gravity that is deserved to each situation, and we don't even freaking know the gravity.
Oh my.
We have to just stay silent. Oh my gosh, it's the freaking kids.
But they know that we're here. Like, they see my car.
Well, I'll just go tell them we can't. We're in the middle of an episode.
Yeah, I guess so.
Love y'all. Merry Christmas.
So anyways, learning that about Rosemary and like basically how much publicity that got, and thinking about it in the context that we were talking about all throughout KFM 3 Part 1, 2, and KFM 4 Part 1 and 2.
It's
and
just
the
even
extent
more
of it,
so.
it's just adds to me to the impressiveness, and it paints a better picture of the character of the Kennedy family and
because
how
it adds to the effort that it took to keep Rosemary with the family.
Yeah.
It's just, like you said, it's just even more impressive. Oh, shoot. No, what did he say? Forgot I have freaking therapy at 5. Okay, yeah, we can. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. We're still recording. Okay, bye. So something to just kind of keep in your back pocket and take with you for future events in the Kennedy story is just notice the difference. Both situations are privilege, but the difference between JFK and Joe Jr. and Eunice and Rosemary and Kick growing up versus the experience, environment, and reality that Bobby, Jean, and Teddy, the youngest Kennedy siblings, were growing up in, because so very much changes just in the timeline of those 9 kids. And so when JFK, I said that he started to realize when he was growing up about in high school what it meant to be a Kennedy, and not just one of the most prominent families in America, but that they were like the hope of the next generation, and they weren't just rich kids. They were symbols for a lot of people in their country. Well, that kind of prominence was just a freaking absolute given once Teddy was literally
Born.
an infant. Yeah. So he grew up in his very formative years from birth till 5 years old.
I think it's in episode 5 that he, the Pope.
Yeah,
something
gives
Catholic.
him his first communion.
Yes, I think we're not Catholic, but I think it's that. But it was the first time a Pope has done that in like over 100 years or something like that.
And Jack got that from like a local priest in Boston, and Teddy got that from
the Pope. The Pope.
Like
they were.
It's
in Teddy's like what 4 or 5.
There's privilege, but we are the most important people in the entire world.
Yes, there is a difference. There's a difference between being rich and being powerful because of your money. You can buy things versus having that type of influence over the general public. Like it's just different. And
it's stuff that's like, you can't totally shield your child from that. Even if you try to be like, oh no, we're humble. Like the things that they were doing, a kid is just going to be like, dude, we are the best thing since sliced bread.
I also think in future episodes to keep that in mind for Bobby as well, because it, to me, makes him seem more impressive.
Yeah. Because
he grows up to do so much and use it. And Teddy does as well. They both. Teddy figures it out eventually. Bobby just didn't have to take a roundabout route to get there. It was a more direct path. And I'm so excited for Bobby and Jack's brother relationship because
and that's coming up real soon.
It is it's almost like a Walt and Roy Disney type of relationship of like just absolute
dedication, self-sacrifice,
loyalty, reliance on each other, and just enjoyment of each other as well. And
unabashed, unashamed,
just like soulmates.
Full out. Yeah.
Anyways, excited for that. So
there's a lot to stay tuned for.
There's a lot to be looking forward to.
Here's the declaration. An air raid went off as they were walking to Parliament, but they had already heard the speech. An air raid siren went off at the end of the speech. Pasted from JFK Library.
See, it's like, okay, that right there is my frustration. It's like, I can't freaking get perfect information because very reputable sources say different things about.
But I think that's fine. And I think that is the cost of it being history. And that it's just like in an
air raid siren went off either before the speech or after the speech.
And does that actually matter?
Right.
An
it's
air
not
raid
a
siren
crime
went off
scene investigation, but it still bothers me.
But I mean, even in crime scene investigations, freaking people, 5 minutes ago it happened, and
witnesses
you're going to say
are like saying the wrong color t-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is just how humans freaking work. That's how history works. It's never going to be perfect. Even in our real lives, things are skewed the way we think about things. Cassie, chill out.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for your grace. Okay.
And it was the perfect time to learn this, to realize that he could be whoever he wanted to be.
I do like this ending.
Nothing in this world is for certain, because for Jack, everything he's ever known is about to be ripped from his hands and destroyed forever.
The freaking juiciest ending.
That I thought was going to be the boringest, like, what a joke ending. Like, that's all I got.
Such a pivotal point for the Kennedys.
It's like a ramp up. Instead of like an ending, it's like, oh, frick, hold on to your freaking seatbelts.
Yeah, because it's about to go down.
Join us here next week to hear about Jack's Nazi girlfriend, his war heroism, and why the FBI was keeping files on him before he ever became a politician. Thank you all for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please give us a review on Apple, rate us on Spotify, and share Blood and Business with a friend or a sibling. If you'd like to support the show, the best way is to become a patron of Blood and Business. You will get bonus content every month, including a monthly bonus episode, interactive main episodes, and behind-the-scenes footage.
To keep up with us day to day, you can follow us at Blood and Business on Instagram and TikTok. You can find the link for Instagram, TikTok, and Patreon in the show notes below. Thank you so much for the support, and we will see you back here next week for your regularly scheduled programming on
Blood and Business.
I have like actual anxiety right now.
We're about to start losing siblings. We're about to start.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's dispersing. The Rosemary thing is about to happen. We even say in it that. Okay. Can my family just leave me the frick alone for 5 minutes? Everyone knows I'm recording and they don't know when to pick up. Okay, now we can mute this. I took a shower today and then put on the same clothes I've worn 5 days in a row.
I mean, that's the vibe.
Today's the last day. I told myself that one.
Oh, no.
No
It's
more.
to that level. Okay, I'm cutting myself off.